The Carter estate stood like a fortress against the rolling hills of upstate New York, its towering windows catching the last light of the setting sun. Inside, the tension was palpable. The ornate drawing room, adorned with priceless artwork and antique furniture, was a stark contrast to the emotions simmering within its walls. Ethan Carter, 28, stood by the window, his hands shoved into the pockets of his worn jeans. His older brother, Henry, paced like a predator waiting to pounce, his tailored suit and armor of affluence. Nathaniel Carter Sr.'s death had left a void, not just in the family, but in the powerful empire he had built. The room was silent, save for the soft shuffling of papers, as the family lawyer Arthur Millstone adjusted his glasses. He cleared his throat, breaking the heavy quiet. I, Nathaniel Carter Sr., being of sound mind, declare this to be my last will and testament. Ethan barely heard the words at first. His mind wandered to the last time he had seen his father, stern, unyielding, a man whose approval felt as distant as the stars. But as Arthur's voice carried on, the weight of the words began to sink in. To my eldest son, Henry Carter, the lawyer continued, I leave the Carter estate, including all properties, investments, and Carter enterprises. Henry's lips curved into a smirk as he leaned back in his chair, confidence radiating from him. Ethan felt a pang of bitterness. Of course Henry would get everything, the golden boy, the perfect heir. And to my youngest son, Ethan Carter. Arthur paused, his eyes flicking toward Ethan. I leave my 1965 Ford Mustang, currently stored in the estate's garage. The words hit like a slap. Ethan's jaw tightened as he struggled to process the insult. A car? That was his inheritance? Henry couldn't suppress a laugh, his voice cutting through the room like a blade. Well, little brother, Henry drawled, at least Dad left you something to match your ambitions. A rusted heap for a rusted dream. Ethan's fists clenched, his temper flaring. Don't push me, Henry, he warned, his voice low and steady. Henry shrugged, unfazed. I'm just saying, you might want to get that thing towed before it collapses under its own weight. Arthur attempted to regain control of the room. Gentlemen, please. There are additional clauses. Ethan didn't wait to hear more. He stormed out, his anger boiling over. The evening air was cool against his flushed skin as he made his way to the garage. The Mustang sat in the dim light, covered in a thick layer of dust. To anyone else, it was just a relic, a forgotten piece of machinery. But as Ethan yanked open the door, something caught his eye. An envelope tucked into the glove compartment. He tore it open, revealing a single note in his father's handwriting. Sometimes the greatest treasures are hidden in plain sight. Beneath it, a small brass key gleamed under the faint garage light. Ethan frowned, the cryptic message igniting a spark of curiosity. For the first time that day, he felt something other than anger. He felt possibility. The hum of machinery filled the air in Dawson's garage, a modest workshop on the outskirts of the small town. The Mustang sat in the center of the room, like an artifact, its faded blue paint a testament to years of neglect. Ethan stood next to it, arms crossed, as Ben Dawson circled the car. Ben, a rugged man in his early 40s, with grease-streaked hands and a permanent scowl, finally broke the silence. Well, Ben said, tapping the hood with a wrench. This thing's been through hell. Rust in the frame, engines barely holding on, and don't get me started on the suspension. But, he trailed off, a flicker of admiration crossing his face. She's got potential. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Potential? Ben, it looks like it's one pothole away from falling apart. Ben smirked. That's the beauty of it. You don't see it yet. But trust me, this car's got stories to tell. Ethan sighed, his frustration evident. It's not the car, Ben. It's this whole mess. My father leaves Henry everything, everything. And I get this? What am I supposed to do with an old car? Ben set his wrench down and leaned against the workbench. You'd be surprised what people hide in plain sight, Ethan. Now, let's see if this old girl has any secrets. As Ben began inspecting the car, the door to the garage creaked open. A young woman stepped in, her fiery red hair tied back in a messy bun, and a tablet clutched under one arm. Lucy Harper was an engineer with a knack for robotics, her sharp intellect matched only by her unyielding determination to break into a field dominated by men. You're late, Ben grunted without looking up. Lucy rolled her eyes. You're lucky I came at all. What's so urgent? Ben gestured toward the Mustang. Meet Ethan Carter. He's got a car and a mystery. Lucy glanced at Ethan, then at the car. Looks like a death trap, Ethan groaned. Glad to see everyone's a comedian. Ignoring his sarcasm, Lucy approached the Mustang. Her eyes narrowed as she studied the interior. What's the story? Ethan hesitated before pulling the note from his pocket. He handed it to Lucy, who read it aloud. Sometimes the greatest treasures are hidden in plain sight. She looked up, intrigued. What else? This. Ethan held up the brass key. It was in the glove compartment. No idea what it opens. Lucy's curiosity deepened. Sounds like your dad left you more than just a car. Let's start digging. Ben popped open the trunk, while Lucy scanned the interior with a flashlight. Ethan hovered nearby, a mix of skepticism and reluctant hope. After a few minutes, Ben whistled. Hey, take a look at this, he called. Lucy and Ethan joined him at the back of the car. Ben pointed to a loose panel in the trunk. Doesn't match the rest of the design. Someone added this later. Lucy's eyes lit up. Could be a hidden compartment. Ethan's heart pounded as Ben pried the panel loose. Inside, wrapped in oil-stained cloth, was a bundle of documents. Lucy carefully unwrapped them, revealing old blueprints, faded photographs, and a map marked with an X. What the hell is this? Ethan muttered, picking up a photograph. It showed a younger Nathaniel Carter Sr. and a woman Ethan didn't recognize, standing next to the Mustang when it was pristine. Lucy scanned the blueprints. These aren't just car schematics. This looks like energy conversion technology. But it's incomplete. Ethan frowned. Energy conversion? My dad wasn't an engineer. Ben scratched his head. Maybe not. But he clearly knew someone who was. Lucy tapped the map. Whatever this is, your dad wanted you to find it. And this map might tell us where to look next. Meanwhile, across town, Henry Carter stood at the head of the conference table in the sleek Carter Enterprises boardroom. The room was filled with executives, all hanging on his every word, as he outlined his vision for the company's future. The polished presentation was interrupted by a knock on the door. Victor Blackwell, CEO of Nova Dynamics, entered, his presence commanding instant respect. A tall man with silver hair and piercing blue eyes, Blackwell exuded both charm and menace. Mr. Carter, Blackwell said smoothly, a pleasure to finally meet. Henry extended his hand, masking his unease. Mr. Blackwell, I wasn't expecting you. I've heard rumors, Blackwell continued, ignoring the pleasantries, about something your late father might have left behind. A set of blueprints, perhaps? Henry stiffened. I wouldn't know anything about that. Blackwell smiled thinly. Of course not. But if you do come across anything unusual, Nova Dynamics would be very interested. As Blackwell left, Henry's jaw tightened. He didn't know what Ethan had found, but he was determined to find out and to use it to secure his dominance. Back at the garage, Ethan, Ben, and Lucy pored over the documents. The blueprints were intricate but incomplete, and the map seemed to lead to a location on the outskirts of the state. "Whatever this is," Lucy said, pointing to the map, "it's big. If Nova Dynamics is involved, we're talking global stakes." Ethan leaned against the car, his mind racing. Why would my father leave this to me? I'm not an inventor or an engineer. Ben clapped him on the shoulder. Maybe he saw something in you that you don't see in yourself. Question is, what are you going to do about it? Ethan took a deep breath, his resolve hardening. We're going to follow the map. If my dad thought this was important, I'm not letting it fall into the wrong hands. Lucy grinned. Now we're talking. But we'll need to be careful. Nova Dynamics doesn't play fair. As the trio began preparing for the journey, none of them noticed the dark sedan parked across the street. Inside, a man with a camera snapped photos of the garage and the Mustang, a sinister smile spreading across his face. That night, Ethan sat alone in the garage, staring at the Mustang. The documents and the map sat on the workbench, illuminated by the faint glow of the desk lamp. His father's words echoed in his mind. Sometimes the greatest treasures are hidden in plain sight. Ethan ran his hand over the Mustang's hood, his voice barely a whisper. What were you trying to tell me, Dad? As the clock struck midnight, the garage door creaked open. Ben and Lucy stepped inside, their faces resolute. You ready? Ben asked. Ethan nodded. Let's find out what's waiting for us. With the map in hand and the Mustang rumbling to life, the three set off into the night, unaware of the dangers that lay ahead, or the secrets that would change their lives forever. The night was eerily quiet, as the Mustang's headlights pierced through the darkness, illuminating the empty road ahead. Ethan gripped the steering wheel tightly, his eyes darting between the road and the map spread across the dashboard. Lucy sat in the passenger seat, meticulously studying the blueprint fragments under the soft glow of a flashlight. In the back seat, Ben fiddled with a makeshift toolkit, his face etched with quiet determination. You sure about this spot? Ben asked, glancing at the map. Looks like it leads to the middle of nowhere. Ethan nodded, his jaw set. It's all we've got. My dad left this for a reason. Lucy leaned forward, her voice filled with curiosity. It's not just the map. These blueprints, if they're even half as groundbreaking as they seem, could change everything. We can't afford to stop now. As the Mustang approached the coordinates marked on the map, the landscape shifted. The bustling city streets gave way to winding rural roads, flanked by tall trees and overgrown grass. The final stretch led them to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of a derelict industrial park. Ethan parked the car under the shadow of a crumbling sign that read, Ridgeway Manufacturing. The building loomed in the moonlight, its broken windows and rusted walls giving it an air of foreboding. This is it, Ethan said, his voice low. Ben hopped out, his wrench at the ready. Looks like the kind of place horror movies are made in. Lucy rolled her eyes. And yet, here we are. Let's just find whatever it is we're supposed to find. Inside, the warehouse was a graveyard of rusted machinery and forgotten tools. Dust motes danced in the beams of their flashlights as they navigated through the cavernous space. Lucy's sharp eyes caught sight of a faintly glowing emblem on one of the walls, a symbol that matched the markings on the blueprints. Over here, she called. The trio gathered around as Lucy pressed the emblem. A low rumble echoed through the building, and a hidden panel slid open, revealing a small compartment. Inside was a metal briefcase, secured with a complex locking mechanism. Ethan picked it up, his heart pounding. This has to be it. Before they could celebrate, the sound of screeching tires echoed outside the warehouse. Lucy peeked through a crack in the wall, her face turning pale. "We've got company," she whispered. "Black SUVs, 4 of them." Ethan's stomach dropped. "Nova Dynamics." Ben gripped his wrench tighter. "We can't let them take this. Whatever's in that case, it's too important." The warehouse door burst open, and a group of men in dark suits stormed in, their flashlights slicing through the shadows. At the front of the group was Victor Blackwell's right-hand man, Damian Chase, a cold-eyed enforcer with a reputation for ruthlessness. "You've made this harder than it needed to be," Damian said, his voice echoing through the warehouse. "Hand over the case, and no one gets hurt." Ethan tightened his grip on the briefcase. "Over my dead body." Damian smirked. "That can be arranged." Chaos erupted as Damian's men charged forward. Ben swung his wrench, taking down the first attacker with a single blow. Lucy ducked behind a stack of crates, using her engineering skills to rig a makeshift distraction, a cascading pile of scrap metal that sent their pursuers scrambling. Ethan clutched the briefcase and bolted toward the Mustang. "Lucy! Ben! Let's go!" The two followed, narrowly avoiding capture as they dove into the car. Ethan started the engine, and the Mustang roared to life. The tires screeched as they sped out of the warehouse, Nova Dynamics SUVs close on their tail. "Hang on," Ethan shouted, weaving through the narrow streets of the industrial park. The Mustang's newly restored engine hummed with raw power, but the SUVs were relentless, their headlights glaring in the rearview mirror. Lucy leaned out the window, her tablet in hand. "If I can disrupt their communications, it might buy us some time." Ben tossed her a cable from his toolkit. "Make it quick." Lucy connected her tablet to a small device she had rigged earlier. Within moments, the SUV's radios crackled with interference, causing confusion among their drivers. One SUV veered off course, crashing into a stack of old barrels. Despite Lucy's success, the remaining SUVs closed the gap. Damian leaned out of the passenger window of the lead vehicle, aiming a pistol at the Mustang's tires. A loud crack echoed as the bullet grazed the edge of the rear tire, causing the car to swerve. "Damn it!" Ethan yelled, struggling to regain control. Ben grabbed a makeshift flare gun from his bag. "Keep it steady, Ethan." He fired the flare, which struck the windshield of the lead SUV, forcing it to skid to a halt. The sudden stop caused the other vehicles to collide, creating a fiery barricade that blocked their pursuit. The Mustang sped away, disappearing into the night. The adrenaline was still coursing through Ethan's veins as they pulled into a secluded clearing to catch their breath. He placed the briefcase on the hood of the car, his hands trembling. "What's inside?" Lucy asked. Ethan hesitated before unlocking the case. Inside, they found more detailed blueprints, a small prototype device, and a photograph of his late mother holding a younger Ethan. Ben let out a low whistle. This isn't just a car, is it?" Ethan shook his head, his voice barely a whisper. "It's the key to something much bigger." Their moment of clarity was interrupted by the sound of another engine approaching. Ethan's heart sank as he recognized the figure stepping out of the car, his brother, Henry. "What the hell do you think you're doing, Ethan?" Henry demanded, his tone dripping with contempt. Ethan stood his ground. "I'm doing what Dad wanted me to do. What you're too blinded by greed to see." Henry's face darkened. "You're going to ruin everything. If you keep this up, you'll destroy the family name." Ethan squared his shoulders. "The family name isn't worth saving if it means selling out to people like Nova Dynamics." The brothers stared each other down, the weight of years of rivalry and resentment hanging between them. Before Henry could respond, Lucy stepped between them. "Enough," she said firmly. "We don't have time for this. Nova Dynamics isn't going to give up, and if we don't figure out what all of this means, they'll win." As they loaded the briefcase back into the Mustang, Ethan turned to his team. "We need answers. Fast." Lucy nodded. "The blueprints mention a Dr. James Whittaker. He's a physicist who worked on experimental energy projects. If anyone can help us make sense of this, it's him." Ethan glanced at Henry. "You can either help us or get out of our way." After a long pause, Henry sighed. "Fine. But don't think this makes us even." With their path clear and their team tentatively united, the Mustang roared back to life, carrying them toward their next destination, and deeper into the mystery that had begun to consume their lives. The Mustang cut through the morning mist like a blade, the engine humming steadily as Ethan drove toward their next destination. Beside him, Lucy furiously typed on her tablet, piecing together fragments of information from the blueprints. In the back seat, Ben stared out the window, lost in thought, while Henry remained silent, his arms crossed defensively. "Dr. James Whittaker," Lucy announced, breaking the tense silence. "I've narrowed down his location. He's been living off the grid for years, working on independent research in upstate Vermont." Ethan nodded. "Let's hope he can help us make sense of all this before Nova Dynamics catches up." As they sped down the highway, Ethan's thoughts drifted back to the journal they had found, alongside the blueprints. His mother's handwriting was meticulous, each entry a window into her brilliant mind. She wrote of her groundbreaking work on a clean energy prototype, her growing fear of Nova Dynamics, and her unshakable resolve to protect her family. One entry stood out: June 15th, 1993. "Nathaniel and I have decided to hide the prototype. It's the only way to keep it safe from those who would exploit it. I just pray Ethan will one day understand why we've done this and find the strength to finish what we started." The weight of her words pressed heavily on Ethan's chest. He glanced in the rearview mirror at Henry, wondering if his brother felt the same burden. The coordinates led them to a secluded cabin deep in the Vermont woods. The air was crisp and cold, the ground blanketed with fallen leaves. As they approached the cabin, a figure emerged, a wiry man with graying hair and piercing blue eyes. "Dr. James Whittaker." "Ethan Carter," the man said, his voice a mix of curiosity and wariness. "I never thought I'd see you here." Ethan stepped forward, holding the briefcase tightly. "Dr. Whittaker, I need your help. My parents' work. It's in danger." Whittaker's gaze softened as he motioned them inside. The interior of the cabin was modest, but filled with scientific equipment, books, and papers scattered across every surface. The walls bore photos of Ethan's parents, a testament to the deep bond they had shared with Whittaker. As they sat around the cabin's small table, Ethan opened the briefcase and spread out the blueprints. Whittaker's eyes widened as he examined the documents. "This," he whispered, tracing a finger over the intricate designs. "This is extraordinary. Your mother's work was decades ahead of its time. If perfected, this prototype could generate unlimited clean energy. It could change the world." Lucy leaned forward. "We think Nova Dynamics knows about this. They've already sent agents after us." Whittaker nodded gravely. "Victor Blackwell is a dangerous man. He's built Nova Dynamics into a juggernaut by suppressing technologies like this. If he gets his hands on this prototype—" "We can't let that happen," Ethan interjected. "But we don't know how to complete the design." Whittaker smiled faintly. "Your parents were geniuses. They left clues, pieces of the puzzle hidden in plain sight. If we can decode the remaining blueprints, we might just have a chance." Meanwhile, back at Nova Dynamics headquarters, Victor Blackwell paced his office, his expression dark and calculating. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. It was Damian Chase, accompanied by none other than Henry Carter. "You were right," Henry said, his tone defensive. "Ethan's stumbled onto something big." I want in Blackwell studied Henry for a long moment before nodding. "You made the right choice. With your help, we'll bring this technology under control." But Henry's mind was conflicted. His betrayal weighed heavily on him, and though he had sided with Blackwell, a small voice in the back of his mind whispered that he had made a terrible mistake. Back at the cabin, the group worked late into the night. Whitaker deciphered sections of the blueprints, while Lucy and Ben focused on restoring the prototype device found in the Mustang. Amid the chaos, tensions flared. Henry's growing unease was evident, and Ethan's frustration boiled over. "Why are you even here, Henry?" Ethan snapped. "You've done nothing but undermine me from the start." Henry's jaw tightened. "You think this is easy for me, watching you play the hero while I'm left to clean up the mess? Dad always believed in you, never me." "Maybe because you were too busy chasing power to see what really mattered," Ethan shot back. Lucy stepped between them, her voice firm. "Enough. We're running out of time. Either you two figure out how to work together, or this whole thing falls apart." The room fell silent, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. As dawn broke, a sharp knock at the door jolted the group. Damian Chase stood on the porch, flanked by two agents. "Well, well," Damian drawled. "Looks like the whole gang's here." Whitaker's face turned pale. "How did they find us?" Ethan clenched his fists. "Does it matter? We need to get out of here." Chaos erupted as the agents stormed the cabin. Ben swung a wrench, buying Lucy time to grab the prototype device. Henry hesitated for a split second before throwing a chair at one of the agents, a rare show of solidarity. Ethan and Lucy managed to slip out the back door, the prototype safely in hand. Whitaker stayed behind, determined to slow down Damian's men. "Go," he shouted. "I'll hold them off." The Mustang roared to life as the group sped away from the cabin, leaving Whitaker behind. Ethan's hands trembled on the steering wheel, his mind racing with guilt and anger. "Do you think he'll be okay?" Lucy asked, her voice tinged with worry. Ethan didn't answer, his jaw set. The loss of Whitaker felt like another piece of his parents' legacy slipping through his fingers. At Nova Dynamics, Blackwell received word of the failed operation. His expression darkened as he stared out the window. "Ethan Carter is proving to be more resourceful than I anticipated," he murmured. "But everyone has a breaking point. Let's find his." As the sun set on the horizon, Ethan parked the Mustang in a secluded spot. The group gathered around a small fire, their faces illuminated by the flickering flames. "We're running out of allies," Ben said. "And Nova Dynamics isn't going to stop." Ethan looked at each of them, his resolve hardening. "Then we'll finish this ourselves. My parents believed in this technology. They believed in me. And I'm not going to let them down." Lucy placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We're with you, Ethan, all the way." Henry hesitated before speaking, his voice uncharacteristically soft. "So am I." Ethan glanced at his brother, surprised. For the first time in years, he saw a flicker of the Henry he used to look up to, the brother he used to trust. As the fire crackled, the group knew the road ahead would be fraught with danger. But they also knew they had each other, and the legacy of two brilliant minds to guide them. The Mustang rested in the dim light of the underground garage, a silent witness to the chaos and hope that had unfolded over the past weeks. The air smelled of oil and determination as Lucy, Ben, and Ethan prepared for the next phase of their mission. Henry leaned against the wall, watching the group with a mix of apprehension and unease, his betrayal still a weight in the air. Ethan ran his hand over the Mustang's hood, its once rusted surface now gleaming from weeks of dedicated work. "This car isn't just a vehicle anymore," he murmured. "It's the key to everything." Lucy nodded, her fingers deftly assembling tools on the workbench. "And if we're going to stay ahead of Nova Dynamics, we need to understand every inch of it." Ben clapped his hands together. "All right, team. Let's get to work. We've got a Mustang to transform into the most important piece of tech this side of the millennium." The group divided tasks. Lucy began working on the intricate circuits connected to the energy converter fragment they had found in the car. Ben focused on the engine, muttering about restoring power that could outrun the devil himself. Ethan alternated between assisting both of them, his mind split between the physical labor and the overwhelming weight of his parents' legacy. In the midst of the restoration, lighter moments surfaced. Lucy teased Ben about his overly enthusiastic devotion to classic cars. "You talk to this Mustang like it's your soulmate," she said with a grin. Ben smirked. "And why not? Unlike people, cars don't lie or cheat. They're honest, straightforward." Ethan chuckled, the tension in his shoulders easing for a brief moment. "Well, let's hope this one is honest enough to keep us alive." Even Henry, standing apart, couldn't help but smile faintly at the banter. As Ben disassembled the interior, his hand brushed against a small, barely visible lever beneath the dashboard. "Hey, Ethan, come check this out." Ethan knelt beside him, peering into the compartment Ben had uncovered. With careful hands, they pulled out a sealed box. Inside were faded photographs, a few handwritten notes, and a small metallic cylinder. Lucy leaned over, her curiosity piqued. "That's not just any piece of tech," she said, holding it up to the light. The intricate engravings on the cylinder gleamed, and a faint hum emanated from within. "What do you think it is?" Ethan asked. Lucy frowned, studying it closely. "If I'm right, this is another fragment of the energy converter, a piece your parents were trying to hide." Ethan's mind raced. The puzzle was beginning to take shape, but the stakes were higher than ever. "We need to figure out how it works, and fast." While the group worked tirelessly, Nova Dynamics wasn't idle. Victor Blackwell, seated in his expansive office, reviewed the latest intel. "Chase failed to capture them," he said coldly, glaring at Damien. "But we know their general location." Damien swallowed hard. "They're on the move constantly, sir. It's not easy to pin them down." Blackwell leaned forward, his voice like ice. "Then make it easy. Deploy our field teams. I don't care what it takes. Bring me that prototype." Back in the garage, Lucy made a breakthrough. She had connected the new fragment to the prototype already installed in the Mustang, completing a critical circuit. The car's dashboard lit up, the faint glow casting an ethereal light in the dim room. A series of numbers and symbols scrolled across the screen. Ethan's breath caught. "What is that?" "It's a data stream," Lucy explained, her voice tinged with awe. "This fragment wasn't just part of the energy converter. It's a memory module. Your parents encoded their research directly into the car's system." Ben whistled. Talk about hiding in plain sight. The team pored over the data, uncovering details about the converter's capabilities. It wasn't just a clean energy prototype. It had the potential to revolutionize power distribution on a global scale. While the group celebrated their discovery, Henry stood silently in the corner, the weight of his actions pressing heavily on him. Finally, he spoke. I know I've made mistakes," he began, his voice unsteady. "But I want to help. If this technology is what you say it is, then it's worth more than my pride. or my fear of losing everything. Ethan studied his brother, seeing genuine remorse in his eyes. Then prove it, Henry. Show us that you're not just saying what you think we want to hear. Henry nodded solemnly. I will. As the team delved deeper into their work, a sound outside the garage caught their attention. Tires screeched, and the distant hum of an engine grew louder. Get down, Ben hissed, pulling Lucy behind a stack of crates. Through the narrow windows, they saw a black SUV pull up. Armed men stepped out, their movements sharp and purposeful. Nova Dynamics, Ethan whispered, his heart pounding. The group quickly devised a plan. Lucy secured the memory module, while Ben rigged a makeshift barricade. Henry surprised everyone by stepping forward, his face grim. I'll distract them, he said. Give you a chance to escape. Henry, no, Ethan protested. But Henry was already moving, stepping out into the open. Looking for me? He called, his voice echoing in the still night. The agents turned toward him, their weapons raised. Ethan and the others seized the opportunity, slipping out through a side exit with the Mustang and the critical data. As they drove away, Ethan glanced back, his heart heavy with worry for his brother. Henry's actions had bought them time, but at what cost? We'll come back for him, Ethan vowed. But first, we need to finish what we started. The Mustang roared into the night, carrying its passengers toward an uncertain future. The data they carried was priceless, but so were the bonds they were beginning to forge. Together, they were determined to see their mission through, no matter the danger. The Mustang sped down a deserted highway, its newly enhanced engine humming with power. Inside, the air was tense. Ethan gripped the steering wheel tightly, his mind racing with the implications of their discovery. In the passenger seat, Lucy scrolled through the newly retrieved data on her tablet, her expression one of awe and disbelief. Ben and Henry sat in the back, the weight of the recent encounter with Nova Dynamics hanging heavy over them. The team reached an abandoned motel on the outskirts of a small town, its faded sign creaking in the night wind. Ben checked the perimeter, while Lucy hacked into the motel's electrical grid to restore power. Within minutes, the group had a makeshift base where they could regroup. Ethan set the memory module on the table, its faint glow illuminating their faces. This isn't just a prototype, he said, breaking the silence. It's the key to everything my parents were trying to protect. Lucy nodded. The data confirms that this technology could generate enough energy to power entire cities sustainably. It's not just clean energy, it's revolutionary. But it's also dangerous, Ben added, his tone grave. If Nova Dynamics gets their hands on this, they won't, Ethan interrupted, his voice firm. We won't let them. Later that night, Ethan sifted through the photographs and notes found in the Mustang's hidden compartment. One photo caught his attention, a young Nathaniel Carter Sr. and a woman with strikingly familiar features, Ethan's mother. She held a prototype of the energy converter, her expression a mix of pride and apprehension. This must have been taken before everything went wrong, Ethan murmured, his voice tinged with sadness. Henry approached cautiously. You really look like her, he said, surprising Ethan. She was brilliant, wasn't she? Ethan glanced at his brother, noting the uncharacteristic vulnerability in his tone. She was, and Dad was too. They both risked everything to protect this. Henry sighed. I never appreciated what they were trying to do. I was too focused on proving myself. I thought, if I could just be the perfect son, Dad would see me the way he saw you. Ethan turned to face Henry, his expression softening. He saw us both, Henry. He just didn't always know how to show it. The next day, Lucy decrypted another section of the data, which pointed to an unexpected name, Doctor. James Whitaker, a retired physicist who had collaborated with Ethan's parents. Ethan immediately decided to track him down, convinced that Whitaker held crucial answers. The team found Whitaker living in isolation in a small cabin deep in the woods. The elderly man greeted them warily, his sharp eyes scrutinizing each of them before settling on Ethan. "You're Nathaniel's son," Whitaker said, his voice soft but steady. "And you found it." Ethan nodded. "We have. But we need your help to understand it and protect it." Whitaker ushered them inside, where the walls were lined with books, schematics, and old photographs. He poured them tea and began recounting his connection to Ethan's parents. "They were visionaries," Whitaker said, his gaze distant. "Your mother's research was decades ahead of its time, but she feared what would happen if the wrong people got their hands on it." "On Nova Dynamics," Lucy interjected. "They've been after this for years." Whitaker nodded. "Yes. Victor Blackwell was once a colleague of ours. He believed the technology could be weaponized, that it could become a tool of power rather than progress. When your parents refused to comply, they became his enemies." Ethan leaned forward, his voice filled with urgency. "Do you know why they hid the prototype in the Mustang?" Whitaker smiled faintly. "Your father always believed in symbols. The Mustang was more than a car to him. It was freedom, resilience, and a reminder that great things often hide in plain sight." With Whitaker's help, the team made significant progress. He explained the technical intricacies of the energy converter, helping Lucy and Ben refine their understanding of the prototype. "This isn't just about power," Whitaker said. "It's about proving that innovation can serve humanity without being controlled by greed." As the team worked, Ethan felt a renewed sense of purpose. He wasn't just fighting for his parents' legacy, he was fighting for a better future. Unbeknownst to the group, Nova Dynamics was closing in. Damien, Blackwell's enforcer, had intercepted a communication between the team and a journalist Ethan had contacted for help. That evening, as the team worked tirelessly in Whitaker's cabin, Damien and his agents prepared for an ambush. "Move in silently," Damien instructed his men. "We don't want to spook them yet." The attack came without warning. A flashbang shattered the cabin's peaceful atmosphere, followed by the sound of boots pounding against the floorboards. Ethan and his team scrambled to defend themselves, using whatever they could find. Lucy shielded the memory module, while Ben held off the agents with a makeshift barricade. Whitaker, despite his age, managed to activate a hidden failsafe that disabled some of the intruders' equipment. Ethan confronted Damien in the chaos, the two engaging in a tense standoff. "You don't understand what you're dealing with," Damien sneered. "This technology belongs to us. It belongs to everyone." Ethan shot back, his fists clenched. Just as it seemed the team would be overwhelmed, the sound of sirens pierced the night. Whitaker had triggered a silent alarm that alerted local authorities. The agents retreated, but not before Damien issued a chilling warning. "This isn't over." With the cabin compromised, the team had no choice but to flee. They packed what they could, including the prototype on Whitaker's research, and loaded it into the Mustang. As they drove into the night, Ethan glanced at Whitaker in the rearview mirror. "Thank you for everything," he said. Whitaker smiled faintly. "The fight's not over, Ethan, but you have what you need to win." As the Mustang roared down the highway, the team knew they were racing against time. Nova Dynamics wouldn't stop until they had the technology or destroyed it. Ethan tightened his grip on the wheel, his resolve stronger than ever. "We're not just running anymore," he said. "We're going to finish what my parents started." The team nodded in agreement, their bond solidified by the challenges they had faced together. With each mile, They moved closer to uncovering the full truth and changing the world forever. The sun had barely risen, casting a pale golden light over the countryside as the Mustang sped through winding back roads. Inside the car, the air was heavy with exhaustion and tension. After the ambush at Whitaker's cabin, Ethan and his team had little time to rest. The stakes were higher than ever, and their trust in each other was about to face its greatest test. Ethan glanced at Henry, who sat quietly in the passenger seat, his face a mask of unreadable emotions. "You've been awfully quiet," Ethan said, breaking the silence. "Something on your mind?" Henry hesitated before replying. "Just thinking about everything. About Dad. About us." "Now's a hell of a time to get introspective," Ben quipped from the back seat, trying to lighten the mood. But the tension lingered, unbroken. Lucy, seated beside Ben, didn't bother to hide her suspicion. "You sure you're with us, Henry? Or are you still figuring out which side benefits you more?" Henry shot her a glare, but said nothing. Meanwhile, in a sleek office overlooking the skyline of New York City, Victor Blackwell studied a report from Damien, his enforcer. The failed ambush at the cabin had only fueled his determination. "They're on the move," Damien said, his voice sharp over the speakerphone. "But we managed to track their vehicle. It's only a matter of time." Blackwell leaned back in his chair, his eyes cold and calculating. "Good. Let them lead us to the prototype. But don't act until I give the word. I want everything, the technology, the Mustang, and the Carter brothers, alive." "Yes, sir," Damien replied. The team arrived at a secluded motel to regroup. As they unloaded their gear, Henry pulled Ethan aside. "We need to talk," he said. Ethan folded his arms, his expression wary. "All right, talk." Henry took a deep breath. I need to confess something. Nova Dynamics approached me months ago. They offered me a deal, money, power, a stake in the company." Ethan's jaw tightened. "And you took it?" "I didn't take the deal," Henry said quickly. "But I gave them information. I didn't think it would go this far." "You didn't think," Ethan repeated, his voice rising. "Do you have any idea what you've done? They've killed for this technology, Henry. They came after us because of you." The others gathered around, drawn by the heated exchange. Lucy looked ready to explode. "You betrayed us," she said, her voice like ice. "How can we trust you now?" "I'm trying to make it right," Henry insisted. "I didn't know they'd go to these lengths. I thought it was just business." Ethan shook his head in disbelief. "This isn't just business, Henry. This is our family's legacy. Our parents gave their lives for this." The confrontation was interrupted by an urgent message on Lucy's tablet. "We've got a problem," she said. "Nova Dynamics has tracked us here. We need to move." Ethan turned to Henry. "You're staying with us. But I swear if you make one wrong move, I won't," Henry said, his voice trembling. "I'll prove myself." With no time to waste, the team packed up and hit the road again, the Mustang roaring to life. Behind them, the shadows of Nova Dynamics loomed closer. As the team pushed onward, Henry's betrayal proved to be more damaging than they realized. Hours later, while Lucy was running diagnostics on the Mustang's systems, she discovered something alarming. "There's malware in the engine's control unit," she said, her voice tight with anger. "It's been sending data back to Nova Dynamics." All eyes turned to Henry. "I didn't do that," he said, raising his hands defensively. "I swear." "Then how did it get there?" Ben demanded. Ethan held up a hand to silence them. "We don't have time for this. Can you fix it, Lucy?" "I can try," she said, already working on her laptop. "But it'll take time." We don't have time, Ethan said grimly. We need to keep moving. As Lucy worked on the malware, Ethan and Henry shared a tense conversation. Why didn't you tell me? Ethan asked, his voice low. I was ashamed, Henry admitted. I've always been the one in control, the one who knows how to play the game. But when they came to me, I realized I didn't know anything. Ethan softened slightly. We're not so different, you and I. We've both made mistakes. But if you're serious about fixing this, now's the time to prove it. Henry nodded. I will. I promised. That night, Nova Dynamics made their move. The team had stopped at a gas station when Damien and his agents appeared, blocking the exits. The Mustang was still compromised, leaving them vulnerable. We're trapped, Ben said, his voice tense. Not yet, Ethan replied. Get in the car. Now. With Lucy's quick thinking, she managed to bypass the malware long enough to get the Mustang running. Ethan floored the accelerator, smashing through one of the agent's vehicles and speeding onto the highway. The chase that followed was harrowing. Damien's men pursued them relentlessly, but the Mustang's restored power gave them an edge. Lucy worked from the back seat, fully disabling the malware, just in time for Ethan to pull a daring maneuver, sending Damien's car careening off the road. After escaping, the team found a safe place to regroup. Henry approached Ethan, his expression solemn. I want to make things right, he said. Whatever it takes. Ethan studied his brother for a long moment, before nodding. Then start by earning our trust. Henry nodded, determination hardening his features. I will. As the team prepared for the next phase of their journey, Ethan gathered them together. We've come too far to stop now, he said. Nova Dynamics will keep coming. But we have something they don't. A reason to fight. Lucy, Ben, and even Henry nodded in agreement. Together, they set their sights on the next destination, the coordinates leading to their parents' hidden lab. As the Mustang roared to life once more, the team knew the road ahead would only get more dangerous. But they also knew they were closer than ever to uncovering the truth and changing the world forever. The morning broke with a faint drizzle, the sound of raindrops hitting the Mustang's roof, a rhythmic reminder of their urgency. Ethan sat on the hood of the car, staring at the mist-covered horizon. The events of the previous night had left him exhausted but resolute. Their path forward was perilous, but for the first time in weeks, he felt a glimmer of hope. Inside the small roadside diner where they had stopped for breakfast, the mood was tense. Lucy was hunched over her tablet, reviewing the decrypted blueprints they had recovered from their father's journal. Ben sipped his coffee silently, his gaze darting suspiciously toward Henry, who sat apart from the group. Ethan broke the silence. We need to get past this. We're in this together now, whether we like it or not. Lucy looked up, her frustration clear. Trust is earned, Ethan, not demanded. Henry still has a lot to prove. Henry, overhearing, slammed his coffee cup down. I said I was sorry. What more do you want from me? Ethan raised a hand. Enough. We can't afford to fight amongst ourselves. Lucy, any progress on the blueprints? She sighed, pulling up a 3D model on her screen. This energy prototype your parents were working on. It's beyond anything I've ever seen. But there's a missing piece. Without it, we can't make it operational. Ben leaned forward, intrigued. Missing piece? Like what? Something to stabilize the output, Lucy explained. Without it, the system risks overloading, and that could be catastrophic. Henry, eager to contribute, spoke up. Our father used to talk about a stabilizer. He called it the keystone. If it's anywhere, it would be in the lab the map leads to. Ethan frowned. Oh, why didn't you mention this before? Henry shrugged. I didn't think it mattered until now. Lucy rolled her eyes. Convenient. Enough, Ethan said firmly. If the keystone is in the lab, then that's where we're heading. Lucy, Ben, can you retrofit the Mustang to handle the prototype in the meantime? Lucy hesitated. It's risky, but we can try. Ben grinned. I've been waiting for a challenge like this. Back at Ben's garage, the team worked tirelessly. Lucy and Ben focused on integrating the prototype into the Mustang's engine, while Ethan and Henry scoured their father's journal for additional clues. Ethan found an entry that caught his attention. The keystone is the heart of the system. Without it, the prototype is a dream, but dreams can become nightmares in the wrong hands. What do you think he meant by that? Ethan asked Henry. Henry shook his head. I don't know, but if Dad thought it was dangerous, we need to be careful. As the hours passed, the Mustang began to transform. Its once ordinary engine now hummed with an almost otherworldly energy. Lucy, covered in grease but beaming with pride, stepped back to admire their work. It's not perfect, she admitted, but it's a start. Ethan insisted on testing the Mustang's new capabilities before their next move. With Ben in the passenger seat and Lucy monitoring the system remotely, they took the car for a spin on a deserted stretch of highway. The results were astonishing. The Mustang's speed and acceleration were unparalleled, but there were also unexpected side effects. The car emitted a faint glow, and its power seemed to fluctuate unpredictably. We're pushing it too hard, Ben warned. Without that stabilizer, it's like riding a lightning bolt. Ethan nodded, his grip tightening on the wheel. Then we'd better find the keystone fast. Their progress was interrupted by a sudden attack. Nova Dynamics had tracked them to the garage, sending a team of agents to retrieve the prototype. The ensuing confrontation was chaotic. Henry, eager to redeem himself, fought alongside his brother for the first time. While Ethan and Ben held off the agents, Lucy and Henry worked to secure the prototype and protect the Mustang. Victor Blackwell's voice crackled over a nearby agent's radio. Bring me the Carter brothers, alive. Hearing this, Ethan's determination hardened. They're not taking us, he growled. With Lucy's quick thinking, they managed to overload the garage's security system, creating a diversion that allowed them to escape in the Mustang. As the team regrouped on the outskirts of the city, a quiet understanding began to form among them. Henry's actions during the attack had proven his loyalty, at least for the time being. You did good back there, Ethan admitted grudgingly. Henry smiled faintly. Don't sound so surprised. Lucy, though still wary, offered a small nod of acknowledgement. Maybe you're not entirely useless. Ben chuckled, high praise coming from her. For the first time, the team shared a moment of levity, their collective hope renewed. The map led them to an abandoned train depot on the edge of town. Inside, they discovered a hidden passage leading to an underground bunker. The walls were lined with old equipment and documents, all bearing the logo of Nova Dynamics. This must have been one of their early research sites, Lucy said, her voice tinged with awe. Among the documents, they found a set of coordinates, the location of the lab where their parents had completed their work. This is it, Ethan said, his heart pounding, the final piece of the puzzle. Before they could celebrate, a familiar voice echoed through the bunker. Impressive. You've made it farther than I expected. Victor Blackwell stepped out of the shadows, flanked by his agents, but instead of attacking, he held up a hand in a gesture of peace. Let's talk, he said. The team exchanged wary glances. We're not interested in anything you have to say, Ethan replied. Think carefully, Blackwell warned. The people who betrayed your parents are closer than you think. And if you don't listen to me, You'll never make it out of this alive." As Blackwell's words hung in the air, the tension was palpable. Ethan's mind raced, torn between his mistrust of Blackwell and the possibility that he held crucial information. "What's it going to be, Ethan?" Blackwell asked, his tone calm but menacing. Ethan glanced at his team, their faces a mixture of fear and determination. He took a deep breath and turned back to Blackwell. "Start talking," he said. The chapter ends with Blackwell's enigmatic smile, leaving the reader on edge as the stakes escalate to an all-time high. The air around the old train depot was electric with tension. Ethan stood facing Victor Blackwell, his jaw clenched. The enigmatic CEO of Nova Dynamics had revealed himself not as an outright enemy, but as someone with potential answers. Blackwell's sharp eyes moved across the team, taking in Lucy's defiant stance, Ben's crossed arms, and Henry's visible distrust. "You want us to believe you're here to help?" Ethan's voice was sharp with suspicion. "Why would someone like you care about my parents' work?" Blackwell smiled faintly, a predator sizing up his prey. "Your parents weren't the only ones to see the potential of their technology. But they underestimated the forces at play, forces that destroyed them. I'm here to prevent history from repeating itself." Lucy narrowed her eyes. "Forgive me if I don't buy the sudden concern for humanity from the head of a corporate giant." Blackwell's expression darkened, his voice dropping. "You don't have to trust me, Ms. Harper. But if you want to survive long enough to see this technology change the world, you'll listen." Blackwell began pacing the length of the room, his tone measured but ominous. "The prototype your parents created isn't just an energy source, it's a weapon. Uncontrolled, it can destabilize power grids, cause catastrophic meltdowns, or worse." Ethan exchanged a glance with Lucy, who looked shaken. "What do you mean, or worse?" "The energy converter amplifies its environment," Blackwell explained. "Under the right or wrong conditions, it could trigger seismic events, earthquakes, tsunamis. It's a ticking time bomb without the stabilizer." Henry stepped forward, his voice icy. "And let me guess, you're the hero who's going to keep that from happening?" Blackwell met Henry's gaze without flinching. "I don't need to be a hero. I just need to ensure the technology isn't weaponized." Ethan cut in, his voice firm. "If you think we're handing it over to you, you're wasting your time." Blackwell smirked. "I never expected you to. But know this, you're being hunted, not just by Nova Dynamics, but by a shadow network far more dangerous than me." As Blackwell's warning lingered, the team made their exit from the depot. They drove the Mustang into the night, its modified engine purring with a strange new energy. Ethan gripped the wheel tightly, the weight of the evening's revelations pressing down on him. "Do you think he's telling the truth?" Lucy asked from the back seat. Ben, seated in the passenger seat, shook his head. "That guy? He's lying about something. It's just a matter of figuring out what." Ethan nodded, his eyes on the road. "Whether he is or not, we have to keep moving. Lucy, how's the engine holding up?" She leaned forward, watching the diagnostic display on her tablet. "It's stable so far, but we need to run it through a full test." They pulled onto a deserted stretch of highway. Ethan floored the accelerator, and the Mustang roared to life. The sheer power of the vehicle was unlike anything they'd experienced. It accelerated faster than any car of its class should have been capable of, and the glow from its engine bathed the road in an eerie light. As they marveled at the Mustang's performance, headlights appeared in the rearview mirror. A sleek black SUV barreled toward them, its high beams cutting through the darkness. "We've got company," Henry said grimly. Ethan pressed harder on the gas, the Mustang responding with an almost sentient surge of speed. The SUV gained on them, its windows rolling down, to reveal armed men aiming rifles. "Get down!" Ethan shouted as gunfire erupted, bullets ricocheting off the Mustang's reinforced frame. Lucy quickly tapped into the car's diagnostics. "The energy converter. It's shielding us. But not for long. We need to lose them." Ben pointed to a narrow side road. "Take the left. They won't be able to follow." Ethan turned sharply, the Mustang skidding onto the gravel path. The SUV followed, struggling to maintain control on the uneven terrain. As the chase intensified, Lucy shouted, "The prototype has a secondary function. If I can activate it, we might get the edge we need." "What kind of function?" Ethan yelled over the chaos. "A magnetic pulse," she replied. "But it's experimental. There's no telling what it'll do." "We don't have a choice," Henry said. "Do it." Lucy keyed in the activation sequence. The Mustang's engine emitted a deep hum before releasing a pulse of energy that rippled outward. The pursuing SUV's lights flickered, and its engine sputtered before the vehicle skidded to a halt. The Mustang surged forward, the road ahead clearing as they escaped into the night. The team stopped at a secluded clearing to catch their breath. The glow from the Mustang's engine had dimmed, but its power was unmistakable. "That was too close," Ben muttered, checking the car for damage. Ethan turned to Henry, his voice edged with frustration. "What aren't you telling us? You knew about the Keystone, and you didn't think to mention it. What else are you hiding?" Henry's face hardened. "I've told you everything I know. If you can't trust me by now, that's your problem." "Enough," Lucy snapped. "We don't have time for this. We need to figure out our next move." Ethan pulled out the map from his father's journal, tracing the route to the lab. "This is where it ends," he said. "If the Keystone is there, we can finish what our parents started." Henry looked at him, his expression softening. "And if it's not?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Then we find another way." The group packed up their gear and climbed back into the Mustang. As they drove toward the coordinates, the air inside the car was heavy with anticipation. The lab was hidden in an unassuming industrial park, its entrance disguised as an abandoned warehouse. Lucy quickly hacked into the security system, and the doors slid open to reveal a state-of-the-art facility. Rows of equipment lined the walls, and a central workstation held the unmistakable glow of the Keystone, a cylindrical device pulsing with a rhythmic light. Ethan approached it slowly, his breath catching. "This is it," he whispered. Lucy examined the Keystone, her excitement tempered by caution. "It's beautiful, but we need to integrate it carefully. One mistake, and it could overload." As they worked to install the Keystone into the Mustang, Victor Blackwell's voice echoed from a nearby intercom. "Congratulations, Ethan. You found it. But your journey isn't over." The team froze, their eyes darting around the room. Blackwell continued, "The Keystone is only the beginning. If you want to survive what's coming, you'll need more than your parents' technology. You'll need to trust me." Ethan clenched his fists, his determination unwavering. "We'll see about that." With the Keystone installed, the Mustang roared to life, its power reaching unprecedented levels. As the team prepared for the challenges ahead, the lab's security alarms blared. "They've found us," Lucy said, her voice trembling. Ethan stepped into the driver's seat, his voice calm despite the chaos. "Then, let's show them what this car can do." The Mustang shot out of the lab, its engine glowing brighter than ever. Their journey was far from over, but for the first time, they had the power to fight back. The moon hung low over the city as the Mustang roared through the empty streets. Ethan gripped the wheel tightly, his eyes flicking between the rearview mirror and the glowing dashboard. The team was on edge, knowing that their destination, the hidden underground lab, was their last hope to secure the energy prototype and uncover the full truth behind Ethan's parents' work. "Are we sure about this?" Ben asked, glancing back at Lucy, who was busy monitoring the Keystone's performance on her tablet. Lucy didn't look up. "If the lab exists, it's where everything we need will be. We have no other choice." Henry sat in the passenger seat, silent but tense. "If Blackwell is right about how dangerous this technology is, we need to get there before Nova Dynamics does. They'll stop at nothing to get their hands on it." The map from Nathaniel Carter Senior's journal led them to an industrial park on the outskirts of the city. At first glance, it appeared abandoned, rows of dilapidated warehouses with broken windows and overgrown lots. "This is it," Ethan said, parking the Mustang in front of the largest building. The faint glow of the Keystone pulsed through the hood, its light casting eerie shadows across the cracked asphalt. Ben stepped out, flashlight in hand. "Doesn't look like much of a high-tech lab." Lucy pointed to a section of the building's wall, her eyes narrowing. "Look closer. The concrete around that doorframe is newer than the rest." Henry ran his hand along the surface, finding a small, almost imperceptible panel. "There's a scanner here." Ethan pulled out the key his father had hidden in the Mustang's glove box. Holding his breath, he inserted it into the slot beside the scanner. A faint beep sounded, followed by the low hum of hidden machinery. The door slid open, revealing a dark corridor leading downward. "Looks like we're in," Ethan said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through him. The team descended a spiral staircase that seemed to stretch forever. The air grew cooler, and the faint hum of machinery echoed through the narrow passage. Finally, they reached a reinforced steel door marked with a familiar symbol, the same emblem engraved on the Keystone. Lucy's hands trembled as she keyed in a code from the journal. The door hissed open, revealing a cavernous underground lab. The room was a fusion of old and new. Dust-covered computers sat alongside sleek, modern equipment, and the walls were lined with shelves of journals, blueprints, and strange prototypes. Ethan's breath caught as his eyes fell on a central workstation. There, bathed in a soft glow, was a device that matched the descriptions from his mother's journal, a fully functional clean energy generator. "This is it," Lucy whispered, stepping forward. "This is what your parents were working on." As Lucy and Ben began examining the generator, Ethan approached a nearby console. A holographic interface is activated, displaying notes and video recordings from his parents. One video caught his attention. It was labeled for Ethan. He tapped the screen, and his mother's face appeared, her eyes filled with both hope and worry. "Ethan, if you're seeing this, it means you've found the lab. I'm so proud of you, my son. Everything we've done was to ensure this technology didn't fall into the wrong hands. You must be careful. Nova Dynamics and others like them will stop at nothing to control this power. The Keystone is the key to stabilizing the generator. Without it, the energy output could be catastrophic." Henry, who had been watching over Ethan's shoulder, frowned. "Catastrophic how?" Lucy turned from the generator, her face pale. "Think nuclear meltdown. But worse. This thing could take out an entire city if it's not calibrated properly." Ethan's stomach churned. "Then, we need to finish what they started, and fast." Before the team could begin their work, alarms blared through the lab. Red lights flashed, and a computerized voice announced, "Unauthorized access detected." "They found us," Henry said, drawing his brother away from the console. "We need to move." The sound of boots echoed down the staircase that they had descended earlier. Ethan turned to Lucy. "Can you shut the entrance?" She nodded, her fingers flying across the keyboard. I can delay them, but it won't hold for long. Ben grabbed a wrench from the workstation. Delay them as much as you can. We'll keep them busy. The team took defensive positions as the first wave of Nova Dynamics agents entered the lab. The intruders were heavily armed, their movements precise and coordinated. Henry and Ben used the lab's equipment to create makeshift barricades, while Lucy worked feverishly to integrate the keystone into the generator. Ethan stayed by her side, helping where he could, and watching for any sign of the intruders breaking through. The sound of gunfire and shouts filled the air as Henry and Ben held the line. Despite their efforts, the agents began to push forward. "We can't hold them off forever," Ben shouted, dodging a burst of gunfire. Lucy's voice was steady but urgent. "I just need a few more minutes. Ethan, pass me that coupling." Ethan handed her the part, his heart pounding. "Whatever you're doing, do it fast." Finally, Lucy connected the keystone to the generator. The room filled with a brilliant light as the device roared to life. The energy it emitted was unlike anything they had seen, pure, clean, and powerful. Ethan stared in awe. "It's beautiful." Lucy smiled, her face illuminated by the glow. "We did it. It's stable." Before they could celebrate, Victor Blackwell's voice echoed through the lab. "Impressive. Truly impressive." The team turned to see Blackwell entering through a side passage, flanked by a smaller group of agents. He was calm, almost smug, as he approached the generator. "Step away from the device," he said, his tone icy. "You've done the hard work. Now it's time to hand it over." Ethan stepped forward, his fists clenched. "You're not getting anywhere near it." Blackwell sighed. "You're brave, Ethan. Stupid, but brave. Do you really think you can stop me?" Ethan exchanged a glance with Lucy, who nodded. Together, they activated a failsafe Lucy had built into the keystone. The generator's glow intensified, and an energy field formed around it. "What are you doing?" Blackwell demanded, his calm demeanor cracking. "Ensuring you can't use this technology to hurt anyone," Ethan said. "If you want it, you'll have to go through us." Blackwell's agents hesitated, the energy field clearly intimidating them. Blackwell glared at Ethan, his jaw tightening. "This isn't over." With a gesture, he signaled his men to retreat. "Enjoy your victory while it lasts, Carter. You've made powerful enemies tonight." As the agents left, the team let out a collective sigh of relief. Ben slumped against a wall, his face streaked with sweat. That was too close. Lucy examined the generator, ensuring it remained stable. "We've bought ourselves some time, but Blackwell's right. They'll be back." Henry looked at Ethan, his expression grim. "What now?" Ethan stared at the glowing generator, his resolve hardening. "Now, we make sure this technology gets into the right hands. No more secrets." The lab was a whirlwind of energy and tension. As the glow of the generator bathed the room in a soft light, Ethan and the team stood in the aftermath of Victor Blackwell's retreat. The silence, however, was short-lived. Lucy's voice broke the uneasy calm. "The generator is stable, but it's far from secure," she said, her fingers dancing across the console. "We need a permanent solution before Nova Dynamics comes back with reinforcements." Ethan nodded, his gaze fixed on the glowing device that now embodied his parents' lifelong work. "And their sacrifice? We'll move it, hide it if we have to. But we're not giving up." As the group began preparing to dismantle and relocate the generator, Dr. James Whitaker emerged from a corner of the lab, holding a dusty file. His face was grave. "I've found something," he said, handing the file to Ethan. Inside were pages of calculations, schematics, and a letter written by Nathaniel Carter Sr. The letter was addressed to Ethan's mother, Anna Carter, and detailed the day their work came under threat. Ethan read aloud, "Anna, if you're reading this, it means the danger we feared is real. The generator can change the world, but its power is too great to be controlled by one person or corporation. If it ever comes to this, you must make the ultimate decision. Either complete the project or destroy it. The choice mustn't be made lightly." Ethan's voice wavered as he finished the letter. His heart ached with the weight of the decision looming before him. Henry, standing at a distance, approached cautiously. "Ethan, I know I've made mistakes. I let greed blind me and I failed you, failed us. But if there's any way I can help now, I will." Ethan met his brother's gaze. For the first time, he saw genuine remorse and determination in Henry's eyes. "We'll need you," Ethan said simply. "If we're going to protect this, we have to work together." Henry nodded, his resolve solidifying. "Then let's do it." Before they could begin relocating the generator, the lab's alarms blared again. The team froze as the sound of explosions echoed through the underground facility. Ethan rushed to the monitors, seeing a live feed of Nova Dynamics agents breaching the perimeter. "They're back," Ethan said through gritted teeth. "And they've brought reinforcements." Victor Blackwell's voice crackled through the lab's speaker system. "You can't run forever, Ethan. Surrender the generator, and I might consider sparing you." "Not happening," Ethan muttered, rallying the team. Lucy and Ben began fortifying the lab's entrances, while Dr. Whitaker started encrypting the generator's data. Henry took charge of the lab's limited defenses, coordinating their efforts. The battle that ensued was chaotic and desperate. Nova Dynamics agents stormed the lab, armed with advanced technology and ruthless intent. Ethan and his team fought back, with every tool at their disposal, but it quickly became clear that they were outmatched. As the agents pushed closer to the generator, Dr. Whitaker made a fateful decision. He turned to Ethan, his expression calm but resolute. "Ethan, listen to me," he said, placing a hand on the young man's shoulder. "Your parents entrusted you with their legacy, and you've proven yourself worthy of it. But right now, the generator must be protected at all costs." Ethan shook his head, his voice breaking. "We're not leaving you behind." Whitaker smiled faintly. "You're not. I'm staying to make sure you have the time to secure the generator. You need to get it out of here and finish what your parents started." Before Ethan could protest further, Whitaker activated the lab's manual lockdown sequence. Thick steel doors began sliding into place, sealing off sections of the lab and trapping many of Nova Dynamics agents inside. "Go!" Whitaker shouted as the team hesitated. "Don't let their sacrifice be in vain." With heavy hearts, Ethan, Lucy, Ben, and Henry fled the lab. The generator safely loaded into the Mustang's reinforced compartment. As they sped away, a massive explosion rocked the ground beneath them, signaling the lab's destruction. The team drove in silence, the weight of Whitaker's sacrifice hanging over them. Ethan's knuckles were white on the steering wheel as he navigated the winding roads away from the industrial park. Henry finally broke the silence. He knew what he was doing. He wanted us to have a chance. Ethan nodded, his throat tight. "But it shouldn't have been his choice. It was my parents' legacy, and I was supposed to protect it." Lucy reached over from the back seat, placing a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "And you are. Whitaker believed in you, just like your parents did. Now it's up to us to make sure this doesn't fall into the wrong hands." As they drove, Ethan's mind churned with questions. Blackwell's determination to seize the generator was clear, but what was his endgame? And how far would Nova Dynamics go to achieve it? Later that night, the team regrouped at a safe house, a secluded cabin Henry had arranged through his remaining contacts. As Lucy and Ben began inspecting the generator for damage, Ethan and Henry sat by the fire, poring over the documents Whitaker had salvaged. Among the papers, they found a hidden journal entry from Nathaniel Carter Sr. The entry revealed a chilling truth. Nova Dynamics had been behind the accident that killed Ethan's mother. Their goal had always been to monopolize the clean energy technology, eliminating anyone who stood in their way. Ethan's hands trembled as he read the final lines. "They took everything from us, but they won't win. I'll make sure of it." Henry placed a hand on Ethan's arm. "We'll make them pay, Ethan. Together." As dawn broke, the team gathered to discuss their next move. Lucy had finished analyzing the generator and identified a potential way to mass-produce the technology without compromising its safety. "We need to go public," she said firmly. "If we release this technology to the world, Nova Dynamics won't be able to control it." Ben nodded. "It's risky, but it's the only way to protect it." Ethan looked around at his team, his family, and saw the same determination mirrored in their faces. "Then, that's what we'll do. We'll expose Nova Dynamics and share this with the world. No more secrets." As they prepared to leave the safe house, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The Mustang's engine roared to life, its power a reminder of the stakes they faced. Henry glanced at Ethan from the passenger seat. "You ready for this?" Ethan nodded, his resolve unshaken. "Ready as I'll ever be." With the generator secured and a plan in motion, the team set out on the next leg of their journey, unaware of the dangers that still lay ahead. The road to justice was long and treacherous, but Ethan was determined to see it through, no matter the cost. The cold wind howled through the dark forest as the team huddled inside the secluded cabin, poring over a map spread across the wooden table. Ethan's face was illuminated by the flickering firelight, his determination unwavering. The team had been driven to their limits, but they weren't giving up. "We have to go public," Ethan said, his voice resolute. "We can't let Nova Dynamics keep this technology in the shadows." Lucy nodded, her tablet open to a blueprint of the generator. "If we showcase the prototype at the Renewable Energy Summit, the world will know it's real. But it won't be easy. Nova Dynamics will be watching." Henry leaned back in his chair, his brow furrowed. "We'll need to get the generator there without them intercepting it. And once we do, we'll need a plan to keep it safe." As the team strategized, the weight of their mission loomed over them. The Renewable Energy Summit, held in New York City, was less than a week away. It was the perfect stage to reveal the generator's potential and expose Nova Dynamics' corruption. Ben studied the map, his finger tracing a potential route. "We'll need decoys. Nova Dynamics is expecting us to head straight into the city. If we split up, we can lead them off our trail." Lucy chimed in, her voice tinged with urgency. "And we'll need to encrypt the data on the generator. If they get their hands on it, they can reverse engineer everything." Dr. Sullivan, who had joined them after narrowly escaping the lab's destruction, nodded. "I'll work on that. But encryption won't stop them forever. We'll need a way to release the data publicly, something they can't suppress." The plan took shape as the team prepared to divide their efforts. Ethan and Henry would transport the generator in the Mustang, its newly enhanced engine, their best defense against pursuit. Lucy and Ben would act as decoys, driving a second vehicle rigged with false compartments to mislead any pursuers. Dr. Sullivan stayed behind, working tirelessly to upload the encrypted data to multiple secure servers. "I don't like splitting up," Ethan admitted as they loaded the Mustang. "But it's the only way." Henry placed a hand on his shoulder. "We'll make it through this, Ethan. Together." The next morning, the team set out. The Mustang roared down the highway, its sleek frame cutting through the early morning fog. Ethan gripped the wheel tightly, his eyes scanning the road for any sign of danger. Beside him, Henry monitored a laptop connected to the generator, ensuring its systems remained stable. Meanwhile, Lucy and Ben took a separate route, their decoy vehicle loaded with harmless components designed to mimic the generator's energy signature. Their journey was no less tense, each turn of the road carrying the risk of discovery. Nova Dynamics was relentless. Within hours, black SUVs began trailing both vehicles. Ethan glanced in the rearview mirror, his jaw tightening. "We've got company." The chase through the winding mountain roads was intense. The Mustang's advanced energy converter gave it unprecedented speed and agility. But Nova Dynamics agents were relentless. Ethan swerved sharply to avoid an oncoming vehicle, the tires screeching as the Mustang hugged the curve. Henry clutched the laptop, his face pale. "They're not giving up. We need a plan." Ethan's eyes narrowed as he spotted a narrow dirt path leading into the forest. "Hold on." With a sudden turn, the Mustang veered off the main road, the agents in pursuit, struggling to keep up. The forest canopy closed in around them, the headlights cutting through the shadows. The Mustang's engine hummed with power, its enhanced systems keeping them ahead. On a parallel route, Lucy and Ben faced their own challenges. The decoy vehicle, though well-rigged, didn't have the Mustang's capabilities. As the SUVs closed in, Ben glanced at Lucy, his hands tightening on the wheel. "You better have a trick up your sleeve." Lucy smirked, activating a device she'd rigged to the car. The rear compartment released a cloud of magnetic interference, disrupting the agent's tracking systems. The SUVs swerved wildly, some veering off the road. "Nice work," Ben said, a grin breaking through his tension. "Don't thank me yet," Lucy replied. "We still have to make it to the rendezvous." Back in the Mustang, Ethan and Henry reached a clearing, the path ahead blocked by fallen trees. Ethan cursed under his breath, spinning the wheel to face their pursuers. Henry opened the laptop, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "If we can boost the generator's output, we might be able to create an EMP burst. It'll knock out their electronics." "Do it," Ethan said, revving the engine. As the SUV surrounded them, the generator emitted a sudden pulse of energy. The SUVs ground to a halt, their systems fried. Ethan didn't waste a second, maneuvering the Mustang through the clearing and back onto the road. By the time the team regrouped outside the city, the tension was palpable. Lucy and Ben arrived first, their decoy vehicle battered but intact. When the Mustang pulled in moments later, the relief was evident. "We made it," Ethan said, stepping out of the car. "Barely," Henry added, his expression weary but determined. Dr. Sullivan greeted them, a flash drive in hand. "The data is ready. Once we get to the summit, we'll upload everything. Nova Dynamics won't be able to cover this up." That evening, the team stayed in a small, nondescript motel on the outskirts of the city. The air was thick with anticipation. Ethan sat alone in his room, staring at the generator's schematics. The weight of his parents' legacy pressed heavily on him. A knock at the door broke his reverie. It was Henry. "You okay?" Henry asked, sitting on the edge of the bed. Ethan nodded. "Just thinking about what happens next. If this works, everything changes." Henry placed a hand on his shoulder. "It will work. And no matter what happens, we'll face it together." The morning of the Renewable Energy Summit arrived with clear skies and a sense of purpose. The team drove into the city, the Mustang leading the way. The streets were bustling, but the team's focus was unwavering. As they approached the convention center, Ethan couldn't help but feel a surge of hope. The world was about to see what his parents had fought for, and what Nova Dynamics had tried to bury. "Let's make history," he said, his voice steady. The team nodded, each of them ready to play their part in the grand plan. The city buzzed with excitement as people gathered outside the massive convention center, hosting the Renewable Energy Summit. Inside, industry leaders, journalists, and environmental activists filled the grand hall, their conversations creating a hum of anticipation. In the center of the hall, under a heavy black tarp, stood the Mustang, now a fully functional prototype of clean energy technology. Ethan adjusted his tie nervously as he stood backstage, watching the audience grow. His heart raced, but beside him, Lucy, Henry, and the rest of the team exuded confidence. They had faced countless obstacles to reach this moment, and now the world would finally learn the truth. Victor Blackwell, CEO of Nova Dynamics, sat in the audience, his cold gaze fixed on the stage. Flanked by his security detail, he exuded a quiet menace. Whispers about his presence spread through the crowd, many suspecting he wasn't there to support renewable energy, but to safeguard Nova Dynamics' interests. Behind the curtain, Henry whispered to Ethan, "Stay focused. Blackwell's just here to intimidate you." Ethan nodded, taking a deep breath. "We're ready for this." The lights dimmed, and the event's host introduced Ethan Carter as the son of Nathaniel Carter Sr., a respected visionary in renewable energy. A round of polite applause followed as Ethan stepped onto the stage. The spotlight made him squint, but he stood tall. "Good morning, everyone," Ethan began, his voice clear but filled with emotion. "Today, I'm not here as an architect or an heir to a family name. I'm here to share my parents' legacy, a vision for a better future." As he spoke, Lucy and Ben carefully unveiled the Mustang. The crowd gasped at the sight of the gleaming car, its modern enhancements blending seamlessly with its classic design. "This," Ethan continued, gesturing to the car, "is not just a vehicle. It's a symbol of what we can achieve when innovation meets determination." Lucy stepped forward, taking over the technical explanation. Using a sleek touchpad, she activated the car's energy converter. The room fell silent as the Mustang's engine came to life, not with the rumble of combustion, but with a low, steady hum that exuded power and sophistication. "This car," Lucy explained, "is powered by a revolutionary clean energy generator capable of running indefinitely without fossil fuels or traditional electricity. The potential applications are limitless, from transportation to powering entire cities." Ethan rejoined her, adding, "This isn't just an idea. It's a reality. And today we're sharing the technology with the world." Henry and Dr. Sullivan worked behind the scenes to initiate the upload of the generator's blueprints and research data to secure public domains. The information would be accessible to researchers and engineers worldwide, ensuring that no single entity could control the technology. As the screens in the hall displayed the blueprints in real time, the crowd erupted in applause. Journalists scrambled to capture the moment, knowing this was history in the making. Victor Blackwell rose from his seat, his presence commanding attention. He approached the stage, his expression unreadable. "Mr. Carter," he said, his voice smooth but icy, "what you've done here is extraordinary. But have you considered the consequences of releasing this technology without oversight?" The crowd murmured, sensing the tension. Ethan met Blackwell's gaze. "Oversight or control? My parents believed this technology should belong to everyone, not be monopolized by corporations like yours." Blackwell smirked. "And if it falls into the wrong hands? What then?" Lucy stepped forward. We've taken precautions. The technology is encrypted, and the scientific community will hold each other accountable. Undeterred, Blackwell signaled his security team. I can't let you jeopardize the energy industry's stability. This demonstration is over. As Blackwell's men moved toward the stage, the room descended into chaos. Journalists captured the unfolding drama, while the audience shouted in protest. Ethan's team stood their ground. You can't stop this, Ethan shouted, his voice rising above the noise. The world deserves clean energy. One of Blackwell's men attempted to disable the Mustang, but Ben intercepted him, delivering a swift punch that sent the man sprawling. Hands off my car, Ben growled. Henry and Dr. Sullivan rushed to protect the computer equipment, while Lucy worked frantically to complete the upload. The crowd, emboldened by the team's courage, began chanting in support of Ethan. Security guards hired by the event organizers stepped in, blocking Blackwell's men from advancing further. Realizing the situation was slipping from his grasp, Blackwell snarled, You think this is over? You have no idea who you're dealing with. Ethan stepped closer, his voice firm. Neither do you. This isn't about us. It's about what's right. The final piece of data uploaded, Lucy turned to Ethan and nodded. It's done. Ethan faced the crowd, raising his hands to quiet them. Today we've taken a step toward a better future. This technology isn't just mine. It's yours. It's ours. The audience erupted in applause, the sound deafening. Journalists rushed to broadcast the news, while energy experts in the crowd marveled at the implications. As the crowd began to disperse, Ethan's team gathered backstage, exhaustion and relief etched on their faces. Henry placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. You did it, little brother. Mom and Dad would be proud. Ethan smiled, tears glistening in his eyes. We did it, all of us. Dr. Sullivan approached with a knowing smile. This is just the beginning. The world's watching now. Later that evening, news broke that Victor Blackwell had been arrested. Documents leaked during the summit revealed Nova Dynamics' unethical practices, including their attempts to suppress clean energy technology. Ethan watched the report from his hotel room, a sense of justice washing over him. He turned to his team. We've changed the game. Now, it's up to the world to play fair. The Mustang, now a global icon of resilience and innovation, was parked outside the convention center. Children posed for photos beside it, their parents telling them about the brave team that dared to challenge the status quo. As the city lights twinkled, Ethan stood beside the car, his reflection merging with its sleek lines. He could almost hear his parents' voices, encouraging him to keep fighting for a better world. With renewed determination, Ethan whispered, This is just the beginning. The impact of Ethan Carter's groundbreaking public demonstration reverberated around the globe. The unveiling of the clean energy prototype, with its blueprint freely accessible to anyone, triggered a seismic shift in both the energy industry and public perception. Overnight, the Mustang became more than a restored car. It became a symbol of hope, ingenuity, and defiance against corporate greed. In the days following the summit, headlines dominated every major media outlet. The Mustang Revolution, clean energy for all. Victor Blackwell arrested, Nova Dynamics' dark secrets revealed. Ethan Carter, the architect of a new energy era. Social media exploded with support, as hashtags like #Clean Energy Now and #Carter Legacy trended worldwide. Communities, scientists, and activists rallied around the new technology, eager to implement it in ways that could benefit the planet. Meanwhile, Nova Dynamics faced a cascading fallout. Shareholders abandoned the company, and investigations into their illegal activities intensified. The once dominant energy giant was reduced to a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power. At the Carter Foundation headquarters, hastily established in an old industrial building, Ethan and his team worked tirelessly. The foundation became a hub for distributing information about the energy prototype, connecting with innovators across the globe. Henry, now fully committed to the cause, used his corporate experience to navigate the legal battles still looming over their heads. "We've got investors interested in funding renewable energy projects," he told Ethan during a late-night meeting. "They want to help, not control." Ethan nodded, his trust in Henry slowly rebuilding. "This isn't just about the technology," he said. "It's about making sure the world understands what's at stake." Lucy, energized by the success of their demonstration, took on the role of the foundation's chief engineer. "We're receiving inquiries from everywhere," she told the team. "From small towns wanting to power their schools to developing nations needing sustainable infrastructure." Ben, ever the pragmatist, focused on manufacturing. "We'll need factories to produce this on a larger scale," he pointed out. "And we'll need people who actually understand how to build it." The established energy sector was in chaos. Fossil fuel companies scrambled to adapt as governments and businesses began prioritizing clean energy. Countries that had once resisted renewable energy initiatives now saw the potential to leapfrog outdated technologies. In Washington, D.C., policymakers debated how best to regulate the new technology without stifling innovation. Ethan was invited to testify before Congress, sharing his parents' vision for a decentralized energy future. "We don't want this to become another tool for monopolies," he emphasized during the hearing. "This technology belongs to the people, not to corporations." His words resonated, sparking legislation that ensured open access to the technology while providing safeguards against exploitation. The rift between Ethan and Henry, once seemingly insurmountable, continued to heal. Late one night, the two brothers stood on the balcony of their father's estate, overlooking the sprawling grounds that now felt strangely irrelevant. "I used to think Dad loved you more," Ethan admitted. "That I was just an afterthought." Henry sighed, leaning on the railing. "And I thought you were the lucky one. You didn't have the pressure of living up to his expectations." They shared a rare moment of understanding, both realizing that their father's love had been expressed in different ways. Nathaniel Carter Sr. had trusted Ethan with the family's most precious secret, knowing he had the strength to see it through. "Let's make sure we don't repeat his mistakes," Ethan said. Henry nodded. "Agreed. From now on, we do this together." The Mustang prototype became a traveling exhibit, inspiring millions as it toured major cities. It wasn't just the technology that captivated people. It was the story of resilience, sacrifice, and the determination to make the world a better place. In a remote village in Africa, a young engineer used the blueprints to create a mini power grid, lighting up homes that had never seen electricity before. In Europe, a coalition of universities began refining the technology for use in public transportation systems. In Asia, a startup developed a compact version of the generator for use in disaster relief efforts. Ethan's dream was coming to life, piece by piece, as the world embraced the possibilities of clean energy. While the present was filled with hope, the past still cast a long shadow. During a quiet evening at the foundation, Ethan received an unexpected visitor, Detective Harper, who had been investigating Nova Dynamics for years. "I thought you'd want to see this," Harper said, handing Ethan a sealed envelope. Inside were declassified documents detailing the full extent of Victor Blackwell's crimes, including his role in the deaths of Ethan's parents. The truth was even darker than Ethan had imagined. Blackwell had orchestrated a scheme to force Nathaniel and his wife into revealing their research, leading to the tragic accident that claimed their lives. Ethan sat in stunned silence, tears streaming down his face. "They didn't just die for their work," he whispered. "They were murdered for it." Harper placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You've already brought their killers to justice, Ethan. But the fight isn't over." Ethan nodded, his resolve hardening. "Then we'll keep fighting. For them. For everyone." The Mustang now carried a new inscription on its hood, engraved in gleaming silver. "In memory of Nathaniel and Evelyn Carter, dreamers, innovators, beloved parents." For Ethan, the car was more than a machine. It was a connection to his parents, a reminder of their sacrifices, and a symbol of everything he had fought for. As he stood beside it one evening, watching the sunset, Lucy joined him. "You think they'd be proud?" she asked. Ethan smiled softly. "I hope so. But there's still so much to do." Lucy grinned. "Good. I was worried you'd gotten too comfortable." They laughed, the sound carrying through the quiet evening air, a testament to the strength of their friendship and the journey they had shared. The Carter Foundation continued to grow, expanding its reach and influence. Ethan became a sought-after speaker, sharing his parents' vision with audiences around the world. Henry used his connections to ensure the foundation's financial stability, while Lucy and Ben spearheaded new projects to refine the energy technology. Ethan often thought about his parents, wondering what they would say if they could see the world they had helped create. He liked to believe they were watching, proud of the legacy they had left behind. As the Mustang roared to life once more, carrying Ethan and his team into the next chapter of their journey, the world watched with bated breath. The Carter name was no longer just associated with wealth or power. It was a symbol of hope, resilience, and the unyielding belief that one idea could change everything. The world was changing, but for Ethan Carter and his team, the journey was far from over. The success of their demonstration had ignited a global movement, but it also brought new challenges and responsibilities. Ethan had inherited more than just his parents' legacy. He had inherited the weight of a promise to change the world. The Carter Foundation headquarters was a hive of activity. Engineers, scientists, and policymakers from around the world flooded the building, eager to contribute to the clean energy revolution. Lucy Harper led a team of young engineers, teaching them how to adapt the prototype for different environments. The enthusiasm was infectious, but Ethan often found himself overwhelmed by the magnitude of their task. "We're not just building technology," Ethan said during a late-night meeting with his team. "We're building trust. We need to ensure this doesn't fall into the wrong hands again." Ben Dawson, leaning against the Mustang, grinned. "Trust us, boss. This time, we're ahead of the game." Henry Carter, now a transformed man, had taken on the role of the Foundation's financial strategist. His experience in the corporate world proved invaluable, helping secure partnerships with ethical investors and organizations. "I never thought I'd say this," Henry admitted one evening, "but this is the most fulfilling work I've ever done." The Mustang had become a global icon. Its gleaming body and innovative engine symbolized the future, drawing crowds wherever it went. Ethan and his team decided to use the car not just as a demonstration of their technology, but as a mobile classroom, traveling to underserved communities to teach them how to implement clean energy. On one such trip to a remote village in South America, the team worked with local leaders to install a small energy grid, using the Mustang's prototype as a model. Children gathered around Lucy as she explained the basics of energy conversion, their eyes wide with wonder. "This is what it's all about," Ethan said, watching the lights flicker on for the first time in the village's school. "Real change, starting from the ground up." Despite their successes, shadows of the past lingered. Ethan struggled with lingering guilt over his parents' deaths and the weight of their sacrifices. Late one night, he found himself in the Foundation's archives, sifting through his mother's journal. Lucy found him there, sitting amid a sea of papers. "Can't sleep?" she asked, sitting beside him. "I keep thinking about them," Ethan admitted. "What they went through, what they gave up." Lucy placed a hand on his shoulder. "They didn't just give something up, Ethan. They gave something to the world. And you're making sure it wasn't in vain." Her words brought Ethan a measure of peace. He closed the journal and stood, determined to honor his parents by continuing their mission. Henry's transformation was one of the most remarkable changes in the Carter family. Once driven by greed, he had become a tireless advocate for ethical business practices. At a major renewable energy summit, Henry gave a powerful speech about the lessons he had learned. "My father believed in hard work and legacy," Henry said. "For a long time, I thought that meant wealth and power. But my brother taught me that true legacy is about the impact we leave on the world. It's about people, not profit." The audience erupted in applause, and Ethan, watching from the sidelines, felt a swell of pride for his brother. The Carter Foundation grew rapidly, attracting some of the brightest minds in science and technology. Ethan and Lucy worked tirelessly to create an open-source platform for the energy prototype, ensuring that anyone with the resources could replicate it. Ben spearheaded a project to produce affordable versions of the prototype for small businesses and rural areas. "This isn't just about saving the planet," Ben said during a meeting. "It's about giving people independence." Their efforts began to bear fruit. Small villages gained access to electricity, urban areas saw reduced energy costs, and schools and hospitals benefited from reliable power sources. As the foundation thrived, whispers of a new threat began to emerge. A shadowy coalition of former Nova Dynamics executives had regrouped, seeking to exploit the technology for profit. The team discovered this through an anonymous tip that included plans to replicate the energy prototype for military purposes. Ethan called an emergency meeting. "We've come too far to let this happen," he said. "But we need to be smart about how we handle it." Lucy suggested creating a failsafe within the technology, something that would prevent unauthorized use. "If we can integrate a security feature, it'll render any stolen versions useless," she explained. The team worked tirelessly to implement the failsafe, while also increasing security around their research. Henry used his connections to expose the coalition's activities, working with international regulators to shut them down. Through the challenges, Ethan grew into a confident and compassionate leader. His bond with Henry deepened as they learned to rely on each other's strengths. Lucy and Ben became more than just teammates. They became family. One evening, as the team shared a rare moment of relaxation around a campfire, Ethan reflected on their journey. "I used to think I was living in my parents' shadow," he said. "Now, I realized they were lighting the way." Henry raised a toast to Mom and Dad, and to the future. The group clinked their glasses, united by a shared purpose and the knowledge that their work was making a difference. The Carter Foundation became a beacon of hope in a world grappling with climate change and energy inequality. Ethan's parents' dream of clean, accessible energy was no longer just a vision. It was a reality. On the anniversary of their public demonstration, the team unveiled a new initiative, a global network of clean energy hubs, each designed to empower local communities. The Mustang, now fully restored and enhanced, took center stage at the event, its engine humming with quiet power. "This car started as a symbol of my family's legacy," Ethan said in his speech. "Today, It's a symbol of what we can achieve when we work together. The future isn't something we inherit. It's something we build. As the event concluded, Ethan, Lucy, Ben, and Henry climbed into the Mustang for one final drive together. The road stretched out before them, illuminated by the car's bright headlights. "Where to next?" Lucy asked with a smile. Ethan grinned, his hands steady on the wheel. "Wherever the world needs us." The Mustang roared to life, carrying them into the night and toward a future filled with possibility. As they drove, the stars above seemed to shine a little brighter, as if the universe itself was celebrating their journey. Their story wasn't just about the past. It was about the road ahead and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. As the Mustang's headlights faded into the horizon, its hum echoing the hope of a brighter future, we're reminded that every journey, no matter how uncertain, begins with a single step or a single key. What would you do if you uncovered a legacy so powerful it could change the world? Would you rise to the challenge? Would you honor the sacrifices of those before you? We want to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What was your favorite part of this story? And how do you think Ethan and his team will handle the challenges ahead? Your insights fuel our passion for these stories. If this journey moved you, inspired you, or kept you on the edge of your seat, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Join us for more incredible tales filled with mystery, hope, and the courage to change the world. And trust us, the next story, it's going to be one you won't want to miss. See you soon.